Has anybody else been in a really toxic relationship and never noticed it until after the fact? Because same. I thought I would give you some examples and see if anybody else could relate. So I was dating this boy. We'll call him Eugene. Eugene ended up going on a cruise with his friends. And at this point in our relationship, I never suspected that he was cheating on me. So this is really where the toxic started. He goes on his cruise, called me every single day, and then I went to his house the day he came back. He was changing his shirt and I noticed that he had a hickey on his neck. I was like, what is that? Because he was gone for over a week. Eugene says to me, yeah, I was sitting in the jacuzzi and my boy pointed it out to me. It was like, yo, what is that? And I was like, yo, I don't know. What the heck? Mia's gonna think this is a hickey. And I was like, okay. So we're watching a movie and he falls asleep. So I took that opportunity to look through his phone. And this was the first time that I ever thought to go through his phone. And I see that he has a streak with a girl. So I investigate, find her Instagram, and I DM her and I'm like, hey girl, I'm coming to you as a woman. How do you know Eugene? Has anybody ever been in a toxic relationship and never realized it until after the fact? Because same. Part 2. So I look through his phone and I find that he has a streak with a girl for 3 days. So I investigate, find her Instagram, and I DM her. And my 15-year-old self was like, hey girl, woman to woman, how do you know Eugene? I see that you guys have a streak. I'm his girlfriend. So I just want to know if there's anything going on. And originally she denied it and said that she was talking to his friend. But I kept grilling her. I was like, his friend has a phone, so why are you Snapchatting Eugene? So then finally I asked her if we could FaceTime. She said yes. So we FaceTime and she starts spilling the beans. She said that they've been Snapchatting for 2 months, that she slid up on his friend's story asking who he is and what's his Snap. So we gave it to her. He would slide up on her story with hard eyes and talk about meeting up. And she said that she knew he had a girlfriend, but he said it wasn't that serious and that I was cheating on him, which I wasn't. She said he would block her every single time I would come over. I asked her what high school she went to. She was in 7th grade. So I don't really know what to call this story time, so I'll just tell it. When I was 13, I was forced to go to this summer camp. It was a 4-week Christian sleepaway camp. We weren't allowed to have any electronics on us the entire time. During prayer and worship, the boys had one side of the room and the girls had the other. And if a girl and boy were talking for too long, a counselor would get in between them and separate them. But anyway, all the girls stayed in one big room with 20 bunk beds. And every single night before we would go to sleep, we were forced to sit in a giant circle and do Bible studies. And then go around in a circle and pray. And there was this one girl that was either gay or bi, I don't really remember. But she had told the camp counselor that in confidence. I guess because, she probably grew up religious and was struggling with that. And was maybe just not ready to accept herself yet. I have no idea. But this camp counselor, in the middle of the prayer circle, outed the girl by being like, dear Lord, please help cure her. And then to make things worse, she said to us, don't worry guys, she's gonna leave the room when you guys change. Christian camp part 2. So all the girls in our cabin, which was around 20, had to sit in a giant circle and take turns reading things from the Bible and praying. And a supervisor was in there with us as well. So one of the girls had came out to the counselor in confidence, and the counselor took it upon herself to pray for her, basically saying, Father God, please cure her, take the demons out of her, which obviously wasn't what the girl wanted, because she told the counselor that in confidence. And then the counselor decides to say, don't worry, everyone, she's gonna leave the room whenever you guys decide to change so none of you feel uncomfortable. Completely disregarding how uncomfortable that would make the girl feel. And I wasn't about to just let that happen. And I caused a scene. I was like, do you even notice what you're doing? You're singling her out when she told you this information about herself because she trusted you. And then you out her in front of everybody here and then treat her differently than everybody else. You're evil. That's literally not what religion should be about. And I got in trouble for standing. Story of the time I slept over my friend's house and she snuck out in the middle of the night to see a boy. Part 2. So I'm upstairs in her room looking at her window to make sure that she gets to his car. And a white van pulls up. Keep in mind, she told me that she's seen this guy before. So she starts running to the van. And I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of freaked out. So I started texting and calling her, and she wasn't answering the phone. And like I said, she told me that if her parents were to come in the room, to tell them that she was outside taking pictures of the trees. She left around 2 a.m., and I didn't get a text or a call back from her for hours. So I started contemplating telling her parents. I heard walking around the house around 6 a.m., So I turned off her light and laid in her bed and acted like I was sleeping. I also put pillows next to me to make it look like there was 2 of us in the bed. Her mom ended up coming in the room, but didn't say anything, and I was too nervous to tell her. So her mom goes back in the room, and around 7 o'clock, she finally gets back. She said she wasn't looking at her phone, cause they were, getting down for 5 hours. And she said she had a really great time. Turns out the white van was his work van.
Story time on how my parents sold me to my uncle. Okay, so boom, let's get straight into it. Ever since I was a kid, everyone would compliment me on how beautiful I was. Literally got complimented everywhere me and my family went. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, it's important. My parents didn't see me as their beautiful child. My parents seen me as dollar signs. I was literally up for sale and my parents were bidding on who would pay the most to marry me. My mom started teaching me how to cook and clean and how to keep a man happy. One day while my mom was getting me ready and all dolled up for dinner, I told my mom I didn't want to marry anyone and she flat out told me I didn't have a choice. Well, little did I know that exact night my mom and I was having this conversation, my uncle was downstairs waiting on me. Like for part 2.
This is part 2 of how I almost drowned someone's baby. When this was happening, I was on my phone, so I was distracted. I looked down in the pool and I see that the baby is drowning. I don't really know how to explain the way that my heart skipped a beat at this exact moment. Like, my heart was beating regularly and then all of a sudden it skipped 2 beats at a time. My ass was in my forehead. Immediately dived down into the pool, took out the baby, but the baby was suffocating. Now listen, I never did CPR, but God blessed me with those skills in that very moment. I was able to keep myself calm and did CPR on the baby and was able to get it to breathe again. I did not tell nobody shit about this. I didn't tell the parents. The baby is fine. I really should have told the parents, because what if it did cause a health issue? But from what I've seen, the baby's fine. Yeah, I didn't tell them what happened, but I quit babysitting because I felt guilty. They haven't said anything about their baby dysfunctioning, so the baby is fine. Just because of this, I pulled myself out of babysitting and I'll never babysit ever again because I'm clearly not responsible enough. This is gonna be a story time of how I almost drowned someone's baby. Y'all, I cannot sleep at night because of this. I cannot believe that I did this to someone's child. Let me go ahead and explain myself. So I was babysitting for this one rich ass family. What's so amazing about it was the fact that the parents were never home. At the same time, I was just a senior in high school. I didn't have much to do after school either. I didn't have hobbies. I didn't play a sport. So I had all the time in the world to babysit for their kid and house sit for them. This baby was only 1 year old. Since the baby was so young, I had to keep eyes on it at all times. They had this big pool area and they said that if I ever wanted to go swimming, I could, and there was a floaty for the baby. One day while I was house sitting and babysitting for them, I went in the pool and I put the baby on the floaty thing. Somehow I forgot that that baby existed. I felt something in the bottom of my feet at the pool. It was like slippery, so I kicked it out the way because I thought it was a toy. And then when I turn around me, I see that the baby is not on the floaty. I look down and I see this tiny human sunk in the water. Like for part 2.
Part 2 on how my parents sold me to my uncle. Okay, so boom, like I said, my mom was getting me all dolled up for dinner and my uncle was downstairs waiting on me. I didn't know this at the time, of course. My mom and I go downstairs and I hear my dad say, "There she is. Isn't she beautiful?" Then I looked at a man who just smiled and said, "I like it." I asked my mom who was that guy and she told me, "Shh, that's your father's brother, sweetie, no more talking." So we all sat down and had dinner and my uncle was just staring at me, smiling at me and looking at me up and down. He was literally studying me. My dad even looked at him for validation. I was so confused. Little did I know this wasn't just a dinner. It was a tryout, an audition, if you will. If I would be good enough for my uncle. He was actually rich and looking for a wife and my dad was trying to sell me to him. Running out of time, like for part 3. Part 3 on how my parents sold me to my uncle. So like I said, we were having dinner and my dad was trying to sell me to my rich uncle. He was literally pitching a sale. She's beautiful, she cooks, she cleans, and she's very smart. And oh, she still has her V card. It was at that moment it hit me. I figured out what was going on. When my uncle left, my parents told me good job for being a good girl. I cried and told my parents I did not want to marry that man. I was 15 and he was like 40, but my parents told me I was going to marry him and I was going to like it. Well, fast forward a year later and they definitely sold me. And I lost my V card to my uncle on our wedding night. I hated it at first, but I kind of fell in love with him. And it didn't hurt that he was rich and I kind of lived stress-free. So yeah, my parents sold me and that sucks, but I ended up being okay with it. Lucky. And we all laugh about it now. Yeah, I know it's toxic and corrupt, but this is why it's an anonymous story.
Story time. So boom. Sunday night, I get a text at like 3 a.m. from this fake number, and they was acting like their Snapchat got hacked, and like she was saying it's my friend, which it's obviously not my friend, because I was helping her get back in her Snapchat like an idiot, like I was not thinking. And then they blocked me. So once they're in my Snap, they decide to go through all my memories, which I've had since 6th grade. I'm now a senior. Super personal and embarrassing. I can't even like show you guys a picture because I don't want to get taken down, but talking about $15 to get put on my premium. So then they're charging people and posting pictures of me on some premium Snapchat from my memories. So I go on Instagram and tell everyone that like I'm hacked. So then they're gonna act like I got my shit back, which I didn't, and then post that they're gonna still do the premium. Like,